Hello. Today we have in the interview Margaret. Margaret is a coach that is focusing on the psychology and the physiology of the business owners that they are intending to increase their profit through mindset. Please, Margaret, can you please introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much, Chris, for having me on your podcast. It's an absolute honor to be here. I'm coming here from Melbourne, so it's 10 p.m., a little bit of a late night, but that's okay. I'm a bit of a night owl, so it's all good. Thank you for having me.
It's my pleasure. So, as I see from your profile, you're focusing a lot on the performance that is coming from the mindset. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Master your mind, master your life, master your emotions, master your creation. That's kind of my philosophy on how I've kind of rebuilt myself in the main three areas: health, wealth, and relationships. So I'm really passionate to be able to be on this show with you today just to share my personal journey on how I transform myself and then work with some other people to do that with them as well.
Yeah, so you are in the mission to transform business owners from a scarcity mindset to, as we call it, an abundant mindset. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Successful entrepreneurs, aspiring entrepreneurs, we all have challenges. It doesn't matter at what level of business you're in, there's always the next level of yourself to step into. And
Hmm.
what I found is that unless you have that alignment internally with the operation of your internal dialogue, it can
Hmm.
get a little bit rocky. So, entrepreneurship, I think we jump into it because the idea of being stuck in 9 to 5 no longer
Hmm.
appeals. Served its purpose. I served 20 years in corporate Australia, so I get it. But yeah, it's a whole different ball game when you jump into an entrepreneur versus employee mindset.
Yeah, so can you please tell us a little bit of your backstory on how probably you managed to overcome this corporate job from 9 to 5 and might together having a business and finally from a full-time in corporate business, in corporate company, you managed to be a successful entrepreneur.
Yeah, so look, I'll go back. I've got some photos here which I've brought along with me for the show. And
Yeah.
this is me as a baby. This I was born into a refugee camp in Thailand as my parents were escaping the Khmer Rouge, and we ended up living in Italy. So that was my first language.
Hmm.
Exposure to a different culture happened very, very early on. So my first language was Italian. Then we moved to Australia in 88. And, from a very young age, I experienced a lot of change. And within my parents, seeing how just having the adaptable mindset to manage change constantly was as an asset was an asset to me. Going into this journey. So fast forward, I went down the traditional route of being a good kid, straight A's. Obviously, my parents wanted me to be a lawyer or accountant or something. I went to law school for first year and decided it's not for me. But I was really interested in philosophy and psychology, which is so I ended up in this field anyway. It's kind of roundabout. Um, how it started for me. So in 2017, I had one of the most pivoting life experiences happen for me, and the question that I ended up asking myself was like, who am I? I'm not sure how much you want me to go into the actual story, but let's just say that I experienced a lot of trauma from childhood into teenage years into adulthood and going through the corporate world. I also experienced workplace bullying and harassment there as well. So I realized something wasn't right. I truly do believe that everybody has a good heart within them when they're born. So we're born into love. Somewhere along the way, we learn fears, we learn things that start to work against us. And it didn't feel good. If I can summarize it, like working in the corporate world just stopped feeling good. So I started looking outside of that, having gone through my own journey with severe trauma, PTSD, domestic violence, all sorts of things as a result of a breakup. That big question landed for me: who am I? And I realized that I had no idea who that was. So I started a soul searching journey, which was basically, I realized very quickly that I was always dependent on other people, which is why I'm so, passionate about teaching self mastery. At the end of the day,
Yeah.
nobody's coming to save you. And I realized very quickly that if I didn't learn how to do that myself, that was it. That was the end of it. So, you've probably seen some of my travel pictures that I share quite openly.
Yeah.
And that's how it began. I realized that by traveling the world and discovering who I was in places that I was not familiar with, that I didn't speak the language of, that I didn't know the people in, I learned how to become really self-sufficient in every area of life. So, in the area of health, I realized that I was quite overweight at the time. I wasn't really
Mhm.
happy with my physical space, so I transformed that. In the area of mental health, I realized that I was very codependent. I didn't know how to think, simple things that a lot of people aren't taught how to do within the family environment or school. It wasn't something that I was familiar with in my household, especially emotions. Growing up in a, so to speak, typical Asian family,
Mhm.
tiger mom, tiger dad was the norms. So when it came to emotional conversations, they were non-existent. So I realized, that's something that I wanted to work on. And even financially, I was literally born, as you see in my picture here,
Mhm.
into scarcity and into survival. Being
Mhm.
born into a refugee camp with no incubators and no nutrition and basically nothing. Um, and also premature. Like I was in survival from the moment that I was born.
Mhm.
But I realized this wasn't the way to live. This is not the way to create. This is a way to survive. And I saw that a lot of people were doing that, especially in the corporate world, and myself inclusive. And so I thought to myself, there has to be something else. So it started with traveling, and then I've been able to see, over 10 countries in a space of 5 years, some of the
Mhm.
most beautiful places on earth. Cyprus, Israel, Iceland, Fiji, New Zealand, I can go on and on. But the point of that was that what I was trying to do, I thought I was traveling the world, but what I was really doing was getting lost to find myself and distracting myself and avoiding the work, the deep work,
Yeah.
you know? And it wasn't until I went to Italy after leaving in 88, I decided after 30 years that I wanted to see my nonno. My nonna passed away, and I wanted to see my babysitter again. I wanted answers to why I had certain questions and why I felt a certain way around specific places, like churches and hospitals scared me, and I couldn't understand why. So I went back and I asked the question, really deep, profound questions, which rocked my world in the best way ever, because I started getting the answers that I didn't know I had buried as a child into, the depth of my mind. But then I realized, after having done the work, that I was here to do something else. I wasn't here to do, I spent 20 years in legal, finance, admin, accounting, asset management. That wasn't the thing that I was passionate about. What I was passionate about was people. Like I love listening to people. I realized my whole life I was the person that people came to open up, and I can meet someone within 5 minutes. They tell me their entire life story.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, there are some really amazing people on the planet with, the ability to do many amazing, beautiful things, but they can't see that. And at one point in time, I couldn't see that within myself.
Yeah.
So in 2019, the best thing that I ever did was take a month off. I booked myself a trip to Europe. Spent to Italy, spent time in Italy with my family. But at the same time, I went on a cruise with, you may have heard of him, Dr. Joe Dispenza. And it was on that cruise that I realized again, there's something bigger in the unknown outside of us that we can tap into to create, which is nothing in the world that we see today. Like it's all a big illusion, and it really came together for me because of that profound experience that I had amongst, I think there was 800 plus people on the cruise.
Yeah.
And so that was the beginning of me making a decision within my own mind to say, there's something else. I have to create something that's more in alignment with my reason and purpose for being. And so I started getting curious. And, I found the world of neuroscience, neuroplasticity back
Mhm.
in 2012 when I read a book called The Brain That Changes Itself by Dr. Norman Doidge.
Mhm.
And that changed my life because he said something to me. He said, Margaret, you are worthy of all fine things. And at the time, I didn't know what that meant.
Yeah.
It wasn't until later that I dived deeper into the world of neuroscience, neuroplasticity, epigenetics, human behavior, psychology, and
Hmm.
even going deeper into the physiology with, studying Neigong, Qigong, or quantum flow, all the things that I love and breathe today, that I realized, yeah, there's something much bigger to create. There are so many people that need this. Coming from corporate, I was always stressed, emotionally unstable, and unbalanced. And, if anyone's worked in corporate, you understand there's a lot of pressure, there's a lot of hierarchies, and it's not the most pleasant environment unless you've got leadership doing the work on themselves that understand how to be leaders versus, um, you know, not. So that's a snapshot of how I came to arrive and realize that, there was something else aside from being in the cogs of 9 to 5. And it was actually something that Tom Barley said, because I saw him in, early 2020 on stage. And he said, find something you would die for and live for it. And that really struck me in the heart center. I thought, wow, imagine 100 years from now, what would people think about me if I just died being an accountant? Like, that kind of crushed me, and I thought there must be a reason why I've gone through all these childhood traumas and, suffering at the hands of, things like domestic violence and all sorts of things that have happened. There must be a reason and purpose for me to have to experience that.
Hmm.
And there
Yeah.
must be other people experiencing and feeling the things that I went through in teenagehood, and I have to share this. So I am so grateful for the people before me that had the courage to speak their mind, and yourself inclusive. I know we have a lot of jokes going back and forth with
Yeah.
Mortal Kombat and all sorts of things, but
Yeah.
that's when I started to find, I started to find that there were many people, that it wasn't just me. I wasn't alone. 'Cause for a long time,
Hmm.
I thought I'm different. My mum used to always say, like, you talk too much, like learn to be quiet and all that. And
Yes.
I'm like, that's almost impossible for me. That's literally the opposite of who I am.
Yeah.
So I guess, for me, the best thing that ever happened was taking extreme ownership of what had happened in my life. And instead of having a victim mentality, having that victor mentality, okay, this happened for a reason. It didn't happen to me. It happened for me to have the human experience. And honestly, I look back, no regrets. I'm like, wow, I got to have that human experience. That's pretty cool.
Yes.
So as you step into entrepreneurship, it's exactly the same ride. You don't know what's coming. Some days, and especially at the beginning, you're like, I'm not sure if I can pay the bills. I don't know how to do anything. Like, this is not like riding a bike. They lied.
Yes. So you
So there's a.
mentioned about Dr. Joe Dispenza, right?
Mm-hmm.
So currently, and 2 days ago, I bought his book, Becoming Supernatural. Have you ever heard about this? Did you read it?
Yeah, so Dr. Joe Dispenza is the reason why I started this whole thing, along with Dr. John DiMartini.
Yeah,
At the
yeah.
beginning of my journey, I went to a seminar with Dr. John DiMartini, and I think it was $30 or something. And I was so broke that I couldn't even afford that ticket. My friend said, you have
Yeah.
to see these guys. And he was talking about the fears in leadership, right? So that was the first time I was exposed to him. When I was in Cyprus, I went to Israel, and when I came back, it was too hot. Cyprus is beautiful, by the way. They have the most amazing bakeries there.
Mm,
Um, and yeah, one day I was looking for something to watch on TV, and I came across Evolve Your Brain. So that's his first book, also. And then he wrote Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself, You Are the Placebo, and Becoming Supernatural. So
mm,
it was at the Becoming Supernatural seminar in Melbourne in 2018 where I had the most profound meditation experience of my life. And that was the first time that I really like stepped into the identity of remembering who I am versus,
would be great to
the
have a little
illusion.
bit of snapshot for this, a little bit to take us through this meditation, because it's important for the audience to understand, because through such kinds of meditations that Dr. Joe Dispenza and De Martini they are guiding through, is really taking us to some portals that we didn't even know that exist. Please tell us more about this.
Yeah, so, when I started meditation, I think everybody sort of struggles. I couldn't even sit still for 2 minutes, so
Yeah.
it takes some training. And Dr. Joe Dispenza will tell you himself, there's no right or wrong way to meditate because meditation is to become familiar with. So, whatever it is that you do that you find your center in, some people meditation might be staring out the window, and, sometimes you're driving, you don't even know how you got there. You're in a state of meditation. So,
Yeah.
I'll go back to the book first because Becoming Supernatural was the book that I read that actually got me curious about theta, the state of
Mm-hmm.
theta, the brain
Mm-hmm.
wave where you're basically in a hypnotic state,
Yeah.
right? So, meditation and hypnosis is a little bit different in the sense that meditation, you're in a state of becoming familiar with, and hypnosis, there's more auto-suggestional command to kind of lead you to a way of thinking. So, it's a way to
Mm-hmm.
reframe and rewire the mind.
Mm-hmm.
But back to your question of meditation, like meditation takes you to a place within your unconscious mind where you get to basically go into a state of creation like you did as a child,
Yeah.
right? It takes years and years, and the right formula within yourself. There's no right or wrong way of doing it. Some people think you have to sit on a cushion, meditate by a tree, and chant kumbaya. That's not
Mm-hmm.
the case. um Within meditation was where I realized to step outside of my body. If you've ever done Dr. Joe's meditations, there's clear instruction on how to literally pull your mind out of the body and then
Mm-hmm.
imagine yourself um there, but at the same time not there. Now I don't want to confuse the audience too much, but
You're
basically
stepping into the superconscious, right?
that's right. You go from conscious to subconscious to I have no idea where my mind is. It's out there somewhere in the universe, and nobody knows how old the universe is. So it's
Yeah.
in the field somewhere.
Right. And how long do you do meditations, and how long did it take you so as to get used to this, to be familiar with this, so as to achieve more concentration, and finally to step from the conscious to the subconscious to the unconscious, and finally to the superconscious, where great things are happening?
Yeah. So my first experience with meditation, where I had one of the most profound experiences, was at a seminar in November 2017. I didn't know what meditation was at the time, and I didn't know the power of it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll give you backstory. At that point in time, I had a lot of social anxiety, and I was scared of being around men because of, things
Mm-hmm.
that had happened. But
Mm-hmm.
within that meditation, something happened. My advice would be to just surrender your mind, just let go of whatever you're trying to hold on to, your thoughts, your feelings, your anything,
Mm-hmm.
and surrender to the words, surrender to the music, surrender to the feeling, just let yourself go. Because what happened in that meditation for me was my heart for the first time cracked wide open. I don't know what happened. I just had this feeling and sensation. I must have had a block in there, and I could feel the meridian lines or the endorphins or the energy, whatever, something happened. And I felt like I was invisible, you know. For the first time, I wasn't feeling scared. I wasn't feeling constricted. I wasn't feeling restrained. I felt free. And at the end of the meditation, the facilitator said, "Now turn to the person next to you and hug them." And I hugged a complete stranger who was a male. And I was like, wow, what happened? Like, 45 minutes ago, I was scared to even look somebody in the eye. And now I'm hugging a complete stranger. So I thought there must be something in that. And
Yeah.
so I got really curious about the different brain waves, the different brain states, how it affects, how you go from being always on alert with the left brain analytical super active to
Mhm.
just handing your mind over, losing your mind to become somebody completely different.
Yeah.
And it probably took me a good 6 months, to be honest, to get into the momentum of finding one that I felt aligned with. So, for example, for me, I couldn't surrender to a female voice in meditation. I prefer a
Mm-hmm.
male voice. That's just me. Perhaps because my unconscious mind has such a powerful, program in there that I need something to overpower that. So, for people that are starting off, find a voice that you can relate to, that
Yeah.
resonates with you, right? But then with meditation, when you add in the power of, the binaural beats and the solfeggio frequencies and the
Mm-hmm.
specific frequencies to activate, the love frequency, the relaxation frequencies,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, recommend people go into understanding a little bit more of that. And there's studies done by Masaru Emoto, who can share why those frequencies are important and
Hmm.
how low vibrational frequencies even affect the structure of a particle of ice being formed, and how that relates to, the human body, because we're majority water. So when you're projecting things like negative emotions, that can
Hmm.
come back and form conflict within you, which then turns into disease. So ultimately, even though I'm working with people to teach them, self-mastery, resetting your mind, rewiring your nervous system, my ultimate goal is to teach people that in a state of love and bliss, it's actually almost impossible to get sick. Like, even in the last couple of years, I haven't been to the doctor since before 2017, because of the state that I keep my mind and body in. And it is through the power of meditation
Hmm.
that this has happened. To some people that might sound really bogus, but that's the absolute truth. I don't take anything apart from food, sleep, water, and look after my mindset through the power of unconscious work. And meditation is how I started my journey. So I recommend, if you're stuck in a place where things aren't making sense, you're not in a state of like surrender to feel, you're scared, try the meditation. I'm sure you've got heaps of recommendations for your guests as well to go there.
This is a personal invitation.
So,
This is a personal invitation because also I was a little bit scared to start meditation because of some health issue that I had that was making me not to be able to concentrate. That was also related to the central nervous system. So because
yeah.
I also am making some tics, so this is distracting, and I always thought that it's not possible for me. But from your experience, I see that it's like you start with something small, us with business, us with making bike, us with making bicycle. You
Mhm.
cannot start and be able to drive the car, okay, perfectly. I was neglecting a lot, but since I started doing this, reading this book from Joe Dispenza, I understood that a lot of power and leveling up in the spirituality is within the true meditation. So yes, this is great. But you also mentioned something about about epigenetics. How the epigenetics that you read made an impact on your physiology and your psychology.
Yeah, so look, epigenetics is very much related to the theta brain state as well. Basically, if you can think yourself into being sick, you can also think yourself into being well. And this goes back to like even the ancient ancestral wisdom that is taught in the Tao philosophy and everything. There must be a reason why, for example, kung fu masters can live past 100 and still have the energy of 30-year-olds. And it comes down to really understanding how to signal your genes. So, some people say that, for example, oh, I'm sick because my mom had a history of diabetes or whatever, or, I adopted this, it's hereditary, it's come through the bloodline, all of that. But I'm living proof that's actually not true. Every
Yeah.
single member of my family, and I love them, has some sort of medical condition that I should have when I don't have
Hmm.
anything. There's no blood pressure, there's no, um, none of those cancerous genes or
Hmm.
conditions have come through to me. And I truly believe it's because I preserve my mind and body in such a way that I'm, to the best of my ability, not exposing myself to modern world interference. Even things like TV. I haven't watched TV in over 10 years. I don't listen to the radio because I know that especially if you're aware and conscious of the power of the unconscious and subconscious mind, that stuff is poison, right? I really encourage anyone listening to go and look into the work. There's a really good documentary called Secrets of Water, and it goes into the fundamentals of why epigenetics and neuroscience and neuroimmunology is the way forward. Meditation is the new medication. That sounds bogus to
This
a
is
lot of
true.
people,
This is
but
true.
sorry, go ahead.
Yes, I just read some couple days ago in the book of Joe Dispenza, Becoming Supernatural. I read that in the epigenetics, they found that we have genes but they are not activated, they are not active even, but just our psychology and psychological traits that involve the physiology, they are capable of activating those, as we call it, genes that are causing some health issues. So, yes, the epigenetics found that yes, we can activate or create something new.
That's right. And so, you see a lot of people that live in low vibrational frequencies and energies. This is going to hurt a few, but you are actually creating that environment. So, until you take control of your internal state, which is again why I teach self mastery, it comes down to really owning what's going on. Now, I interviewed a lady, for example, who was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. And the powering question for her was, why did you choose this? To most people, that's a silly question, but unconsciously, she chose it because she
Mhm.
needed to learn a lesson to
Yeah,
overcome that in order to do what she does now, right? So most people, yeah, I hope it does trigger you into thinking about why something's happening for you. And what you were saying before, like, well, you have the genes, it's not hereditary. Like, if anything, right now, even through what I've been through, I should be hooked on drugs. I should be, I should be sick. I should have diabetes. I should have
yeah,
all of these things that are in my environment. But because I consciously choose to program myself and I'm aware that I have the capability to do that, to make the
yeah,
conscious choice, I am the one that signals my genes to go in the direction that I want them to. Like, for example, I'm 42, but I feel 24 and I'm around 5-year-olds that can't keep up with me, but other people say, oh, yeah, I'm too old and whatever. Like, all of those limiting beliefs are what are causing you to age. Right. So I recommend everybody start to look into epigenetics, especially. And there's, heaps of content out there. Look onto like Bruce Lipton's probably the spearhead in all of this. He goes deep into it. He's got amazing books and he can explain it simply. But again, that's why I resonate with Joe Dispenza, John DeMartini, Bruce Lipton. They've taken half a century of work and put it into digestible form, like the book Becoming Supernatural, so that the everyday person can understand
yeah,
at a basic level the action that they need to take in order to, one, become aware of it, two, start embodying it, three, integrate it, and then, four, shift past it and start to create miracles. So, I think we've talked a little bit about bringing into reality what it is that you want. And Joe Dispenza has a simple formula, clear intention plus elevated emotion equals current reality. And that comes through the power of meditation. The elevated emotion is the generation of that field within you, to create the environment so that you can start to be again in a childlike state, whether it is that what it like, whether you want to call in, I don't even like using the word abundance, but the flow of positive things happening in your life, it starts there. It starts with you, because people are like, oh, yeah, I don't have this, I don't have that. That's all the limiting beliefs that start to deconstruct. When you ask a child if they know how to fly, they'll put anything around their neck and they'll start running off the couch and they'll start flying. There's no limitations with them, right? Because they're born in a state of love. They only learn fear. They learn these other limiting things from people around them. So I would like to see a world where adults start to say what they think and, you know, really live from the core of their hearts, because that's where the magic is. And, if you start to do things like meditate, um, you start to do things that basically allow you to return to your natural state. Because there's a lot of people say, out there that say, as an entrepreneur, you need to become this, you need to become that. I don't believe that. I believe that you're already perfect. I believe that you just need to remember to be who you are, like at the natural state of pure love, before all the stories, before all of that. Be and find out what it is that your genius code is. Find out what it is that lights you up, you know. Um, this is why I say I have no regrets. Had all of these things in my human experience not happened for me to realize that I have this power within me, I wouldn't be able to have this conversation with you about this, because I'm not, it's one of the things that Dr. Joe teaches as well. Nobody is like extraordinary to the point where no one else can copy that. Like what I'm saying is we all have a genius within us. It's just a matter of becoming aware of it and unlocking that within ourselves. You don't need to become anyone. You just need to be who you are. We all have a unique, limited edition human experience to share with people. So
It's profound.
that's why I'm
Yes.
so passionate about sorry, go ahead.
Please, please.
Yeah, so that's why I'm so passionate about like teaching people how to be who they are, through owning everything that's happened within your journey and human experience. It doesn't matter if you're 21 or, 89.
Mm-hmm.
There's something within everybody that someone else can learn from. So why not do that instead of just go to 9 to 5 and do something to pay somebody else's bills? And, look, if you're happy to do that, by all means, there is nothing wrong with that. Everybody gets a choice, right? But if you are stepping into, entrepreneurship, it's a different mindset. It's a totally different mindset that you need to go from secure here to,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, how's that going to work out?
So we can say that since some years it's happening the apocalypse, okay? And the apocalypse, we mean that it's not coming from the hand of Jesus to create a volcano, I don't know what, but it is that the information is spread via social media, via internet. We are speaking. When we are speaking, we are extracting information to the people, you to me to you. So we see that as apocalypse, we can say that is the spreading of information that people can contact each other via books, via workshops, via masterminds, and so the truth, and what means the truth? The higher self, the divine self, we can access it. So we can say that there is not some Jesus or some God or whatever that will come to destroy, but is the miracle of the internet that is spreading the information that we have in each household a computer, even on Africa, that we can find the information, we can find the book, and thanks God about Jeff Bezos that he has the amazing and wonderful books exist there. So we can have the information, and as me, as you, as other people can awaken ourselves, and by our light to awaken the other people, and blah 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 blah, so that we are reaching higher level of consciousness, and finally all of us, we are united as we are one and the whole, and go back to our source. Is that right?
That's correct. It's all about returning home, and home is where the heart is. My message to the world is learn how to think with your heart, because a lot of the time in this human construct, we're driven by the left brain analytical, trying to reason, trying to make sense, trying to all of that. What if the purpose and intention is not to understand? What if it's just to live your life? Whatever that means. Because a lot of people think like, oh, if I do this, it's wrong. If I do this, it's right. But there's actually no wrong or right. It's just left, right, positive, negative. Because at the end of the day, to be a perfect human being, you have to have the masculine and feminine, which is the positive, negative energy. And we all come back to ground zero within ourselves. So by taking up practices and having a consciousness that's open to expansion of the self beyond the self, that's it. You're playing a different game then, because you're going from Lamborghini to legacy mindset. You're like, what am
Mm-hmm.
I going to be creating or thinking or reading about in 100 years time versus just that thing in between? Nothing wrong with Lamborghinis. They're amazing cars. I've got a picture of one there, right? But thing is, yeah, when you're talking about the raising of consciousness and human evolution, and it takes every single person playing their part to make that happen. Now we can go deep into how that's played out in different areas of, in different eras within the human evolution this far. But yeah, go and explore the timeline of wisdom. There's a lot of modalities around, for example, NLP, timeline, all of that, but they're very young. If you go in deeper to like, beyond the Hermetic principles, for example, like the wisdom that come through from people that shared it back then, like Nicholas Tesla,
Mm-hmm.
it's starting to come to the surface now because people are ready.
Yep.
They have tools around the how to understand what is basically invisible intelligence, because people like us are talking about it. And I mean, like I said, I can share hundreds of stories of things that I've so-called manifested into life, from trips to places to this and that. But it comes down to having that unshakable belief within yourself that you're capable of creating it. And, Dr. Joe says it, your outer world is a reflection of your inner world. So if there's chaos inside you, expect to see chaos. If there is love and bliss, expect to see love and bliss. And this goes in all areas of life. Um, so yeah, I think step one is, it's really great that we can have these conversations, because step one is awareness. Most people aren't aware. They think you're crazy, or what's going on. But once they start to become aware of it, you can't unsee it. You can't not see it. You can't not feel it. It's a default state to start manifesting. Then you realize, actually, it's not a miracle. That's a normal way of being. That's a normal way of creating. We've just never activated the internal mechanics of how to do that. Didn't know that I could do that. And now that you can, it's like, oh wow, I can create anything.
Yes, it's amazing. So, when we would like to wrap up today about what we said in overall, what is this one advice that you would say to a person that is still on a 9 to 5 job, but still has the seed inside his mind that this is not what he or she they want to do, but they want to do something more with themselves? What would you advise to these people?
My advice would be to, if you follow my path, start saying yes. Start saying
Mhm,
yes to things that make you uncomfortable, and start to continue to follow that path, and just ask the questions. I wouldn't recommend anyone just jump out of the plane like some people
mhm,
tell you, build the wings on the way down, and, create something hoping that it might work.
mhm.
Work with somebody or do some personal development books. Ask someone that's done something that you see yourself within their lifestyle achieving,
Yeah.
and just ask them how they did that. Get the guidance. I really like, one of the best things I've ever done is invest in myself. I probably poured over $100,000 into
Yeah.
myself to just
Yeah.
get that clarity within myself. Some people do that in different ways of whatever habits that they do, right? But my advice would be, if you're stuck in a 9 to 5 and you've got that itch, and there's something with that, you can feel it. It's not even a thought. Like, you can feel that something's not right. Start exploring what that is. Maybe the first thing you do is get clarity on what you actually value. One of the things I realized was I was living this lifestyle that wasn't even like what I wanted. It was what the people before me that taught me wanted. So yeah, give yourself permission to fully surrender and let go, that there may be something better out there for you, and work with someone, or go on your own path, go traveling the world like I did, and just have the courage to think beyond what you know now. Because, in all honesty, that is like 1% of the human experience. When I made the decision to start exploring outside of what I knew 9 to 5, all sorts of opportunities came up. But the best thing to do is, and I think you would agree with this, find someone that's doing what you want to do, and just ask them how they did it. They'll happily, from their heart, share, that you can do it too. Yeah.
Fantastic. This is a very wonderful advice. So, if you found value from this interview, if you think that this is something that suits to you, you can always go to the profile of Margaret that is below in the description of the YouTube link. So there is the link for Margaret. You can always friend her. You can always ask her about more things. And of course, if everything goes well, you can of course work with her and so on. So very nice to have you today here, Margaret. And from Greece and from Melbourne, Australia, we are saying hello to our audience. So, yeah,
Thank you, Chris, for having me. And
thank
thank you,
you.
everyone, for listening. Much love.
Much love. Bye bye.
Bye.